Hey guys, I'm back. Let me move my screen up so it looks a little bit better. There we go. So we don't really have that many slides left, and I noticed my last lecture video was only like 20 minutes. So I'm still going to talk about a lot of this stuff on Monday, but I kind of want to review what we just discussed and then get into the undoing of Reconstruction real quick because you can have time today to watch both of these videos. So remember phase one of Reconstruction, what we talked about on Tuesdays, we have all these plans and whether or not it's coming from the president or it's coming from Congress. And, Lincoln's got ideas and they're combated by Congress. Before we have any idea what to do, he's assassinated, right? I mean, we have ideas on what to do before they're executed. He's executed. That was a bad choice of words. Too soon? I don't know. So Johnson's president. We know the debacle with him. And then in our last video, I just really wanted to reiterate this duality of truth that's existing. We've got amazing things happening at the government level led by the radical Republicans, but we also can't be ignorant to the fact that Black codes are illegal but are still existing. The 15th Amendment is causing incredible amounts of controversy, especially with women's suffragists. And we don't have banking systems that protect African Americans in this period of time. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today, where we do get an amazing idea, but it's also going to be a part of the unraveling. So we institute things like sharecropping. We've got schools being created, and we've got African American leadership trying to come out of the church. And we've got troops in the South trying to, enforce whatever it is they can. But ideas are just not going to be effective. Okay. We get the Civil Rights Act of 1875, these are great things. These are amazing things, but this is also happening in an era of time where I've got to provide some nuance. Okay. So let's actually kind of keep going. I can't play my videos for you during the PowerPoint because YouTube thinks I'm like stealing their information and I'm this evil teacher who is like, abusing copyright infringement. But I'm going to post those videos for you because they're really good. So the last section of the chapter is literally called the undoing of Reconstruction, right? So Reconstruction was hanging on by a thread in my last lecture video. We got these ideas popping up, the reality of the situation versus the kind of delusion that radical Republicans are under are two totally different things. In 1873, we got a lot of things happening. Okay. From 68 to 72, we've got Grant's first presidency going on. But by 73, he gets reelected, he gets inaugurated. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And it was in that previous video that YouTube won't let me show you. But we get this big depression. Okay. Now I'm not testing you on the causes of the depression, but I have them listed here because economic history is like my favorite thing in the world. The Northern Pacific Railroad goes bankrupt. This is the railroad that was helping finance the Union and the Northern Pacific Railroads were helping. Helping finance the Transcontinental Railroad. Now, big thing. About a third of the U.S. population's jobs were tied to the American railroad systems. So if large railroads like the Northern Pacific Railroad goes bankrupt, the trickle down effect is going to be insurmountable. We're going to have huge rates of unemployment. Okay. Crop prices are falling. You've got iron production falling. Most of the railroads, half the railroads are going bust. And the Freedmen's Bureau Bank fails, which is awful because it was created to solve a problem that we just talked about. If African American skill set prior to freedom is agriculture, it's going to be hard for them to do anything else. Well, what do they want? They want their own land. They want their own farms. They're not going to go up north. They don't want to do that. They want to do what they know to do. They want to stay with their families who they finally got back. They want to stay in their church communities. And the only way to do that is to sustain a life in agriculture. But you can't get land because you can't go and get a loan. So nobody can buy land without a loan. So the Freedmen's Bureau Bank is put into place to kind of help facilitate equity. Fortunately, because of the Depression, this amazing idea, it's never executed in a way to really truly prosper the freedmen population in the Deep South. So again, got these ideas. We've got these like sharecropping. Oh, it sounds great. No, it's slavery. It's this endless cycle of debt and convict leasing and just all of the schools are the only things that are going to be upheld. But even then, they're still segregated, right? You've got great and copious amounts of people trying to think things through, but it's not going to be enough, unfortunately. And the Depression is really going to be the first of many steps that are going to start that derailment. Okay. The disillusioned liberals, classical liberalism and laissez-faire, um, start to come really into play when the people start getting upset about what Reconstruction is doing. The Republican Party has grown the federal government to a tremendous degree. Mind you, Lincoln had to. He didn't believe too much in a strong federal government, but he knew he had to in the war and during Reconstruction, right? We were a broken country. We needed some sort of entity to fix that. And all of a sudden, there's going to be a big backlash after the Depression. And radical Republicans are going to start seeing their power unravel because they can't keep the loyalty of the American citizen. Government's going to be blamed for the Depression. Government's going to be blamed for everything that's going on. And it's going to be in the name of big government. If big government is so bad, Republicans need to save face. And in order to do that, they're going to start changing. How are they changing? Well, they're going to start to become classical liberalists, which is endorsing limited government. And then they're going to start practicing laissez-faire, which means government's not going to be involved in the economy as much as it used to be. Now, mind you, they're trying to reconstruct a broken country, right? It's only been 7-8 years since the end of the American Civil War. And you have massive amounts of federal reform that you're trying so hard to enforce. You got troops in the South. I mean, you got all these ideas. And then all of a sudden, you're going to switch your party platform to limit power to what? Win elections? Well, it sounds great and it might win you elections, but how is it going to help us uphold Reconstruction? It's not. So the Republican Party in its very self is going to start to deteriorate because they're going to be blamed for everything. Okay. Now, in the midst of this, so again, the undoing of Reconstruction, number one, it's the Depression. Republicans are being blamed and government officials, people are getting tired of government, right? And they're experiencing the failed policy themselves. So one of the biggest things we start to see in the undoing of Reconstruction is the Depression. One other one that we've already talked about is what we want to do to fix the problem versus how it's actually being orchestrated, right? And that's what we talked about yesterday, or I'm sorry, in my previous video. And in the midst of all of this, let's go into another big reason why Reconstruction is failing. Well, the Grant's presidency in his second term, we have lots of scandal. And I have a sick video of the Credit Mobilier. And I just can't play it on the Slasher video because YouTube always thinks I'm trying to steal their stuff. But I'm going to upload it. And a long story short, with Credit Mobilier, you have government officials literally creating fake stocks to obtain government money to build railroads. They're literally, and these are Republicans in the Senate, pocketing government dollars, telling everybody that they're making railroad systems, and they're approving government funds to build the railroad. All the while, they're overshooting the government contracts and pocketing the money. I mean, we're talking about like hundreds of millions of government dollars, tax dollars in Republican pockets. It's a big scandal. And, you know, it's happening under Grant's watch. So Republicans, they're not doing so good. They're in charge of what's going on, and their policies are pretty failed. Then the Depression happened, so of course that's their fault. Then they decide to be a limited government with a limited role in the economy, and Credit Mobilier comes out. Then the whiskey ring comes out, which is another scandal where Grant's personal secretary is stealing tax dollars. And Grant is ignorant to all of this. That's what he says to the American people. He's like, I didn't know. Which he didn't. And my heart just goes out to him. But you're the president of the United States, bruh. You can't not know what's going on. Right? So starting to get a feel how Reconstruction is going to be an all-out failure. Yeah. Let's keep talking about what's happening. As you're seeing the northern industrious North start to deteriorate from the Depression, the South is being affected as well. You get redemptioneers coming in, and then you get the KKK and Nathan Bedford Forrest. What is this? This is a response in the South to the troops being there and radical republicanism. Things are just a little too much for them to take. So what do they start doing? Well, they start a huge terror campaign. Nathan Bedford Forrest develops the Ku Klux Klan. They start lynching Black politicians. They start lynching white supporters. Their job, and on your test, is to destroy the Republican Party. That is their job. And the troops are having a really hard time controlling it. They're having a very, very difficult time controlling it. Nathan Bedford Forrest is a former CSA general, And he says by any means, he's going to damage the Republican government of Tennessee. And that's how you're going to be tested on how we first get to see the KKK. So again, troops are still in the South. We have good ideas, kind of failed policy. We're trying to enforce them. We get the depression. We get a party who's afraid they can't get elected. So they start to pitch that they're going to be limited in government policy and limited in the economy. And we have scandal. I mean, what's an American voter to think, right? And now you've got the KKK running rampant in the Deep South. So Grant sees all of this. His second term is starting to implode upon him. But he is not going to deal with the KKK. He does not want to deal with redemptioners. So he starts pushing enforcement laws. And these laws are to shut down the KKK, to shut down terror. He actually moves federal troops, more troops, into regions, especially Tennessee, where Nathan Bedford Forrest is from, to try to stop what's going on. So again, the ideas are there, the effort is there. We have troops, but we're also dealing with what we need to reconcile with groups of people who are honestly, they're haters, y'all. How do you stop that? And Grant's going to try the best that he can. And Congress wants laws to stop violence. And Grant is, again, pushing troops to occupy South Carolina, to occupy Tennessee. And all of a sudden, in that next midterm election year in 74, Republicans lose votes. Democrats have this huge smear campaign on Republicans that everything is their fault, that we'll never heal from the Civil War because they never gave us a chance to be a democracy again. And it just sounds great. And voters are going to start to change. So again, you've got an outpour of violence, you have the depression, and you have scandal, right? This is at the bottom of the PowerPoint. And the Democrats take the House of Representatives. Now, Republicans have owned the House of Representatives since 1958. That's how long they've had the majority. But if you look at these maps, y'all, the Electoral College maps, and if you look at the district maps, people are not voting Republican. People are sick of reform. Sick of reform. It hasn't even been a decade after the war. We still have problems to solve, but nobody's seeing any results. And then you just get bad after bad after bad ensuing. And, what are we supposed to think? What are we supposed to do? Right. So all of a sudden, Democrats are winning power back. And that is a bad thing to happen in this period of time, a very bad thing. And then we get to the end of Reconstruction. There's a lot on this PowerPoint slide. I realize that. I'm going to go through bit by bit by bit. And I'm going to post some videos to really help you. And again, I'm going to go over this on Monday too, to just really drive it home. The continuing failure of Reconstruction. So we talked about KKKs rising up with redemptioners. We've got the Depression happening. We've got good ideas, but failed enforcement and policy through things like convict leasing and sharecropping. It's just slavery 2.0, pretty much. And scandal is brewing. So everything that's trying to be done is being made in good strides. The 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, just great things. But still people aren't happy and enforcement's not being done. And it's just bad. And that's still when the troops are there. I'm about to talk to you about how the troops are going to leave. It's just so much. Okay, so we have the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, but one of the biggest problems we have is whether or not the Democratic-held Supreme Court is going to uphold these amendments. Y'all know a law is only strong as its ability to be enforced. And the radical Republicans are pushing the 14th and the 15th Amendment to protect freedmen and to give them the rights they need in order to live. Equal rights, due process, equal protection of the law, the right to vote. The problem is the slaughterhouse cases in the U.S. versus Crankshot cases. Now, I gave you the slaughterhouse cases. I'm not going to go into the intricacies of all of these, but just make sure you understand this one thing. And this is what you would write on an essay. The Supreme Court is being led by Democrats, and they are not upholding the amendments the way they should, which is a problem. If they're not going to interpret the Constitution the way it was supposed to be interpreted and the way it was supposed to protect people, then how are they going to be used? And for 100 years, they're not going to be used the right way. You're going to have countless cases in front of the United States Supreme Court that are going to be overturning things that shouldn't be overturned. The 14th Amendment basically is powerless. So it's this huge victory, but the way that it's being executed, it's just not working. So you have a failure of the United States Supreme Court. So let's go ahead and add that to the list, right? And you see that in the slaughterhouse cases, U.S. versus Crankshot, and you see that in the civil rights cases, okay? And then we get to the end all be all, the end of Reconstruction. is from the election of 1876. Now, I have an awesome video that I want you guys to watch, and we're going to watch it on Monday. But all of these things that are listed are the things that you're going to be tested on. Okay. So you have an election between Samuel Tilden and Hayes. Grant is gone. He serves 2 terms in office. He leaves amidst scandal, amidst the failure of the enforcement laws. He can't put down the KKK. He's trying so hard, and it's just bad. I mean, his last couple of years in office is just not very good. The United States Supreme Court isn't holding up radical Republican amendments and their laws. Radical Republicans and Republicans are trying to shift to become laissez-faire and classical liberalists in a time where we need more government to execute law. And then we get to this election. Hayes is a Republican, Tilden is a Democrat. Now, at the end of the day, no one's got enough electoral votes to win. 3 states hold on to their results, and their results are kind of contested. And all of a sudden, Democrats have popular votes in these states, but the Republican-led electorate from the Electoral College say that no, Hayes won these 3 states. So remember, when someone doesn't win majority vote, where does the election go? It goes to the House of Representatives. So the House doesn't want to do like an end-all be-all vote. They don't want to do that. So they come up with a compromise, and it's another compromise, or Henry Clay's not here. In this compromise, Hayes basically pitches this idea. He's the Republican candidate. He says, give me these 3 states so I can be president. And the Democrats and Samuel Tilden, who wants to be president, and he probably should have won the White House, says, well, what do we get? And Hayes says, I'm going to kill the Reconstruction Act of 1867. Remember how I told you that was important? That was really important. We split up the South into military districts, and we moved troops in the South to try to help and protect freedmen. And if we remove them, that's the last chance we have at Reconstruction. I mean, it's over after that. And Tilden agrees to do this. He pulls the troops out of the South in the exchange to get these 3 states so he can be president of the United States. He adopts classical liberalism and laissez-faire, and all of a sudden, the South is left to be ruled by Democrats. There are no troops to enforce anything. You're going to see insanity when it comes to elections. Things like, we're going to get way more into this, literacy tests, taxes, grandfather clauses that favor white voters over Black voters. And all of a sudden, the 15th Amendment is gone, like it never existed. You're not going to see Republican states winning anything for a lot of elections to come. And it's really because of this moment. Like, Hayes just signs his life away, thinking he can change things, and he really can't. Okay, so again, Dems win popular vote, but the Republicans certify 3 Southern states. The Electoral Commission established by Congress to solve the problem, because the House doesn't want to just go ahead and vote. And their idea is, well, Dems tell Hayes, if he pulls the troops out of the South, they'll give him the election. That's how much they knew that they could rule by state government in the South under everyone's nose. And if the Republicans are adopting classical liberalism and laissez-faire, are they going to do anything about it? No, they ain't doing nothing. Reconstruction is over because of the Compromise of 1877. Mind you, it didn't have a lot of ground to start on in the beginning, unfortunately. And this story is not over. We're going to be constantly embedding and talking about Southern society. We're going to be talking about the growth of institutionalized racism through Plessy versus Ferguson and definite segregation, Jim Crow laws. And then we get to the happy part of the story when we get to the 1950s and the 1960s, and we get to talk about people like Martin Luther King. It's unfortunately just going to take us a long time to get there. So again, key terms still due Monday. I hope you guys get time to watch this video and the other video so you can be prepared. Have a good weekend.